Please be seated. Those of you that are part of regular church life know that today's the third Sunday of Advent. It's the day we light the pink candle on the Advent wreath. As I mentioned in my sermon this morning, it's called Gaudete Sunday. Gaudete is a Latin word that means rejoice. This day is supposed to be about rejoicing. Yet we arrived at this day in the shadow of two tragic shootings, one at Brown University in Rhode Island and the other in Sydney, Australia, as people gathered to begin their observance of Hanukkah, festival of light and a celebration of God's presence. As we take our last steps in a year that seemed to offer very little in the way of rejoicing, wildfires, ICE raids, intensified political and social divisions, and for many of us, more than our fair share of tragedy. This holiday season comes taunting us with its glitter and shine, leaving many of us feeling like there's something wrong with us if we just can't give into it and have a holly jolly Christmas this year. We may all have different reasons, but I know that there are many among us who are struggling our way through this year. And there are many of us who are still struggling. Some of us have said final goodbyes to people that we love, some of which were unexpected and tragic, and others who are preparing to do so. For some, it feels like our bodies have betrayed us. And still, some of us have been betrayed by others. If you find yourself there this year like I do, there's something about the lights we see everywhere this year that's hard to articulate. It's not that they aren't bright, they're just different. We heard from Paul in his letter to the Romans that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint. And I have to admit that this year I read that and I kind of said to myself, hey, Paul, are you so sure about that? That's why I'm grateful that we also get to hear about Mary. I know a lot of people love the image of Mary as profoundly serene and full of grace. And I'm not saying she wasn't. But you have to admit that Mary's story, even if she was totally aware of God at work, was not an easy one. Not from the moment of the angel's annunciation to the day she stood there and watched her son get nailed to a cross and die. I find it hard to believe that Mary felt particularly favored in every moment of her life. Mary knows grief. Mary knows suffering. Mary knows what it's like to have no sense of which end is up. Mary knows what it feels like to have all kinds of people swirling around you, telling you how good everything actually is, and that everything's going to work out just fine, while inside she was freaking out. feeling like everything that was happening was just too much. I imagine that was true around the birth of Jesus and around his death. Mary knows all of it. And yet somehow she still finds a way to hold on to at least a shred of hope. But hope can be elusive, especially right now. When everyone else seems to be so cheery and light, it can heighten the disconnect we feel from it all and make the grasp we have on hope seem even more fragile. What do we do with the fact that, especially at this time of year, everyone just wants us to be happy and okay, even if we aren't? How do we do that when life throws curveballs or heartbreak or disaster strikes? Invariably, someone will say, don't give up. Everything will be all right. And even though it might sound ludicrous, we want to believe that. Many of us pray and pray and pray, help me be strong. Help me be. Help me. I have to admit, I'm a work in progress in all of this right now. This year has been really tough on a lot of different levels. And I'd be lying if I said that I haven't had more than a few moments this year that have made me cast my eyes up and say, are you even there? I know I'm not the only one. I've had more than a few folks come to me this year and say that doubt is taking over, that they're searching and struggling to find where God is and what God is doing. I get that. And sitting here tonight as your priest, I want so very much to have something to say that can make all of that, whatever it is you're experiencing, to make it better. My heart wants to give you that. But that's not what tonight's about. So I've resisted the temptation to try to have all the answers or to find just the right words. Tonight, I don't think there are words. I think there's space. Space to feel grief, loss, anxiety. Space to feel all the things that the pace and pressure of this season seems hell-bent on not letting us feel, so that everything and everyone comes across as merry and bright. There was never going to be just one service that turns everything around for all the folks that are struggling right now. So perhaps we can all just hold that together. And maybe, just maybe, in this shared moment, right here, we may find the frost of our isolation at this time of year, that it begins to melt away, even maybe just a little bit. Perhaps the candles we'll light in a little while might warm our hearts as well, because The rest of that passage from Paul is that hope does not disappoint because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that God has given to us. That's true whether our hearts are whole or broken. It starts with our hearts. For all the answers I don't have tonight, I'm convinced that if we just try to open our hearts up even just a little bit to the Holy Spirit surrounding us tonight, we may just find that what was daunting is just a little bit easier to bear. Our troubles and challenges will still be there after this service, but perhaps we can put some of the weight down tonight. Tonight, let's choose to find something in the lights. Perhaps tonight we won't call it joy. Maybe we won't feel like rejoicing. But maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to call it hope. Because the invitation of Advent, the invitation of this night, the invitation of Mary and the baby she'll give birth to is that for just a moment we try to believe. We try to believe that it's possible for us to feel joy again, not some hollow imagination of joy. That it's possible for us to heal. And the promise of Jesus Christ in our lives is that even when we feel like we're at the end, His story tells us that there's always more. And tonight, we're reminded that His story is our story. And so, for those of us struggling, hurting, or gripped by anxiety, I stand before you, or really I'm sitting, I guess, before you tonight to remind you, whatever's going on for you, the story's not over. That's a promise.